Hey fellow brain pickers, how would you like to get featured as a guest on multiple podcast shows like this one and get massive exposure? GetFeatured.media will get you featured on targeted shows. They'll design a custom bio page, pitch you to the hosts, schedule a time, prepare you for the shows, and promote you so you get even more brand exposure. Head over to GetFeatured.media to get major publicity for your brand.
Welcome to the Can I Pick Your Brain podcast, where successful entrepreneurs get their brains picked so you can apply mindset tricks and game-changing tactics that will help you become unstoppable. Now, here's your host, Daniel Gefen.
Hi fellow brain pickers, and welcome to episode 56 of Can I Pick Your Brain? My guest today was told from a very young age that he was a big dreamer. And in fact, he was advised to drop out of school because he didn't have a chance at success. Well, this big dreamer turned those negative voices into powerful, positive action and not only became a millionaire at a young age, but was named Business Person of the Year, became an award-winning international motivational speaker, best-selling author, highly sought-after success coach, and one of the most energetic, positive balls of energy you will probably ever meet in your life. Greg Walker, otherwise known as the Big Dreamer, has made it his mission in life to help people change their lives by changing their minds. Greg, welcome to the show, and thanks for letting me pick your brain.
Wow, who is that dude you're speaking about, Daniel? I got to meet that dude. That's a sweet dude you're speaking about.
Well,
wow, thank you, brother. That was a great intro. That's making me blush, and not too many things make me blush.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And my audience is going to find out exactly, what kind of person you are. And I'm so excited to have you on my show. And I'm really excited to find out, how you went from being brought up with so much negativity and managing to become so successful. So, can we go back to when you were a young boy? What was it like growing up in your shoes?
Well, me being 13 of 15 children, my father had 18 brothers and sisters. My mother had 16 brothers and sisters. I have 14 brothers and sisters.
Whoa!
I'm the only one ever to make it out of the 9th grade. Grew up in a very violent, drug-infested prostitution home with murder. Like I said, prostitution. I would walk in. My mother and father divorced when I was younger. I would always walk in and see my father molesting my sisters. My sisters would scream at me, "Get out of here!"
Oh my goodness!
They even though my sisters are drug addicts or were drug addicts on the street, they always looked out after me. So I dealt with that all the time. My father would come in and out of our lives. He would put my mother's head through the wall, throw it through glass windows, pull guns on my brother's heads. He once pulled a gun on my brother's head and pulled the trigger. But my older sister put her thumb in between, and actually he pulled the trigger and it broke her thumb.
Oh my!
Broke her thumb.
God!
And I remember him looking at one of my oldest brothers and said, "You got lucky today. You got lucky." So that's where I grew up. And I tell people all the time, when you grow up with addict parents, and I'll turn 51 on December 19th. At 51, Daniel, I've never touched alcohol or anything. And I used to think it's because I was strong. Now I know it's because what I've seen in my life, and it's embedded in my head that I know what drugs and alcohol has the possibility to do. And I never wanted to do that. I used to pick worms and sell them to bait stores so we could help feed each other because our parents were addicts. And listen, I just learned this through my authors right there, just wrote my story. And she says, Greg, do you think that's your first time that you thought about entrepreneurship? I said, what? I don't know. Maybe it was. She said, well, your brothers and sisters were getting high and getting drunk, and they were only picking 2 to 5 cans, and you picked 20 to 30. I said, well, Donna, I picked those 20 to 30 because I didn't want to have to go there. And plus, we had to turn our money into my father, right? So I figured if they were picking 2 to 5 cans, then I would pick 2 to 5 cans and just give him that money and then stash the other money away in my pocket so I could buy food at the store for myself.
Wow.
So that was my first turn into entrepreneurship.
Oh my goodness. So can I ask, where are your brothers and sisters and parents today?
Both parents are dead. The reason I didn't speak till I was 11 years old, and I just figured this out at 46 year old because one of my friends is a child psychologist.
Hold on, you didn't
and I
speak?
woke about I didn't speak at all till 11 years old.
What do you mean?
We
What do you
found
mean
out
you didn't
46
speak?
years old. I woke up about 5, 7 years old. I hear a noise. I get up. I see my father back in our home. He's standing at the top of the stairs. I see a bottle, which I know now was Jack Daniel's whiskey, and a gun. And my mother was at the bottom of the stairs, with blood everywhere. And he looks at me. He says, "Boy, that's what happens when you open your bleepity expletive voice, and then your mouth." So that's why I never spoke. I thought I was quiet. My wife, I've been married to for 29 years.
Wow.
She was my best friend growing up. I never asked her to marry me, Daniel, 29 years ago. I was that shy. I gave her only sister, who's in Israel right now, visiting.
Really?
I gave her only sister the ring, and I said, "Please go ask Janet to marry me." And I ran. I went to my boy's house, my friend's house. She called me, and one of my best friends, she said, "Yeah, you big dummy. I've known you since 4th grade. I'll marry you." That's how quiet I was, Daniel. She used to order my food for me. With all my restaurants, I never held a meeting. Never. I delegated. We teach people in business, you have to learn to delegate. You can't be the captain of the ship and cleaning the rooms at the same time. You will crash. So I was great at that because I had to delegate, right? I joined this thing called Toastmasters 3 years ago, and they brought the confidence out of me to speak. So when my employees now see me speaking, they're like, "Who's this dude here? Who's this guy?"
Who's this guy?
Listen, Daniel.
Wow.
My oldest sister hasn't. When I graduated, I was like you said, I was asked to drop out of high school my very first day, because my 12 siblings before me dropped out. But it's because of a loving teacher that turned me back and took me in that school when I dropped out. And I want everyone to listen to this. I want you to put this in your mind and write this down. Find someone in your life that can talk you off that ledge, who can turn you around to get you where you were supposed to go, to turn you in that right direction. That was my teacher, Miss Renee Rivers, who did that. She walked me through high school. And a month before graduation, her and 3 other high school teachers brought me in. They told me to close the door. They told me they were going to do something that's risking their jobs. They told me I was not going to graduate because we needed a 2-point grade point average to graduate in 1984. I had a 1.9. So what they did was they changed my grades from 1.9 to 2 because they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. They knew the reason why I was always looking out at the windows, because I was dreaming how to get out of my life. They knew I wasn't stupid, but I thought I was stupid. I graduated 454th out of 455. And I was mad. I told my teacher, "Miss Rivers, I'm going to graduate at the bottom." She says, "Greg, don't worry about that because I know you have a work ethic in you. I see you when you play sports. You have that ethic and you will outwork everybody. You will outwork that person that has an MBA, PhD.
That's incredible.
I didn't really see that, but now I see it now. And that's why I tell people, talent won't win when talent won't work hard, right? Everybody's got talent. But who's willing to go the distance to get what they want? Who's willing to sacrifice who they are for who they want to become? Are you willing to sacrifice sleep? I just spoke with Les Brown, and one of my friends drove 9 hours, no sleep for 2 days because he wanted to live his dream and get a picture with Les Brown. That's what sacrificing is. Are you willing to put your iPhone down for a week to sacrifice to get your dreams? Are you willing to go without sleep? Are you willing to go without going to those parties, those sporting events to get your dreams? Most won't. But
Why?
I will.
Why?
And I did.
Why? Why won't they? That's the question. Why won't they? Where are your sisters and brothers today? And why did they go to drugs? And why did they run away? But you didn't. You grabbed life by the balls and you did something with yourself. Why?
Well, most of them are in prison on the streets till this day. And I have helped all of them, but just by giving them money, and that didn't work. Because a light bulb can change itself, but it's got to want to change. So I stopped giving my siblings money, and I offer them education, rehab. But the reason I do is most people are fearful. Most people let fear take them to where they don't want to go. I tell people there's 2 meanings to fear in my life. Face everything and run. That's what my family did. Or do what I did and face everything and rise. Fear, I invite fear. I love fear. I love doing things that scare me. As long as it's not going to cost me a limb, an eye, or my life, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. That's it. Most people in the world, especially America, they let fear guide them. And fear is just a myth that we make up. Some guy right now who's a plumber in America, right? He wants to be a school teacher, but he's afraid that he won't pass the test. Listen, I got an old employee, a young employee, but he's one of my older employees. He wanted to be a doctor, living in a basement of alcoholic parents. Well, we always guided him. He used to bring his younger brother, Brad, and to work with him. We'd buy him coloring books, and we knew this young man wanted to be a doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he was so fearful of getting into college that he wouldn't apply for medical school. He didn't think he could do it. Now we see him 20 years later. He hugs my wife, and I say, thank you, guys. Because of you, Jan, and a big dreamer, I'm a doctor now at Ohio State University. And I said, Eric, listen, you were just a rocket. Me and my wife, we were just the fuel.
It's incredible.
That's it. I taught him fear. Fear is a myth. Fear is a myth. Go try to be a plumber. Go be a school teacher. Go get your GED and go to college. You got to get away from it. The only way through fear, you can't not go around it. You can't not go over it, on top of it. You got to kick the door down and just bust through it and just do it.
So what were some of the things that you were really scared of?
Poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Poverty. That's what I was scared of.
That was your biggest fear. Why?
That was my biggest fear, because I grew up in poverty, and I saw people with things. Now, I tell people say, Greg, you talk a lot about finances and stuff. You're too into money. I said, no, I'm not too into money. I'm just not into poverty. I'm not into poverty. Listen, I was born into poverty. That's not a problem. But if I stay in poverty, there's a problem there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a problem. Like there was a systematic problem in my family for no one ever on either side to go past the 9th grade, to no one ever making more than $30,000 a year. That's a problem. It's not a shame to be born in poverty. There's no shame. But if you stay there, that's a problem.
What's the most you've made in a year?
Most I made, probably $5 million. The most I made in 3 days was $300,000.
Holy smokes, man! 300,000.
And this is what I talk about, Daniel, about sacrificing. You know who LeBron James is, right? The basketball player.
Yeah, who hasn't?
Okay, when he was in Miami, I live in Columbus, Ohio. He's in Cleveland, from Cleveland. When he played in Miami, I bought 4 courtside seats for the playoffs to see him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a buddy of mine called who was had problems with taxes, right? And he knew my wife and I were good at just looking at numbers and stuff, and my wife's great at investigating. So he called me. He said, brother, hey, can you come to Seattle, Washington and help me? I'm in deep, deep trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, how can I help you? He said, you guys are good at looking at numbers. I haven't paid my taxes in like 5 years. So I said, brother, I don't know if I can help you. He said, please, I'll pay you some money. I'm like, dude, I'm going to watch LeBron. Well, when he told me on the phone what it was, I said, we're coming there. And my buddy, I gave him the tickets. I said, I'm going to give you tickets to go see LeBron. He's like, man, I can't believe you're giving up on that. How are you giving up on that?
Right.
Well, when I told him, he still didn't. This is a guy who right now, 61 years old, still works in a warehouse, makes less than $28,000 a year, right?
Wow.
But I grew up with him. I love him. See, like I said, opportunities come to everybody, Daniel, but only a few will take them. I have a picture on my Facebook and Instagram where I show that I'm smiling big, driving back from Seattle, and I have a blow up of that check that says $300,000.
The guy paid you $300,000?
$300,000 for a week. My wife and I went to help him find his numbers, make his numbers right, so he wouldn't have to pay huge penalty, because he was looking at paying millions of dollars, like $6-7 million in penalties. So $300,000 was nothing.
How did you break through the money mindset? Because I feel like a lot of people listening to this, one of the issues a lot of people have when they're growing a business is they just can't get that past that point. Like, so the person who's only ever made like $20,000 a year, they just can't imagine making like $100,000. Or the person who's made $100,000, they just can't see themselves making like $1 million. And it just like, how do you break through that mindset? How did you break through that $20,000 or $30,000 mindset and go and get $5 million in 1 year?
Because I saw a guy driving a $300,000 Ferrari in the 1980s. I saw a guy. I had friends with their parents, who basically raised me, who taught me. And I have one guy, George O'Connor, who I used to go to church with his daughter, and because I was beaten if I talked about any type of religion, any. My father hated any type of. I don't care if it was Islam, Christianity, Judaism. I don't care what it was. It wasn't heard of then. So they taught me the greater things in life. When I first saw what a Rolls Royce was, I didn't like the car, but I thought, wow, someone spends $400,000 on a car. My first mentor through my teacher, Miss Rivers, was a guy who came in. He was speaking because we went to an all-black school in the inner city of Columbus. And so they would bring people in. We brought this guy in, and he was talking to us. And I kind of like had a chip on my shoulder because of my family life in the 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And he comes to me and says, young man, is there something I'm saying that is irritating you because you're kind of giving me these weird looks? Remember, we went to an all-black school, and I looked at him and said, we are just tired of you white guys coming in here telling us how we can do something. My best friend who just celebrated my birthday with me, he said, he reached over and he says, Greg, you do know you're the only white dude in this class, right? He tells the story all the time. So he said, this guy said, young man, he said, I know about you. Your teacher talked about me, about you. Your principal explained to me. He said, where do you think I went to college at? I said, I don't know, maybe Europe or California, New York. He said, what if I told you I dropped out of the 9th grade? I said, if you dropped out in 9th grade, you're a loser like my family. My teacher yelled, Gregory, you respect this man. I said, Miss Rivers, he said he dropped out in 9th grade. All my brothers and sisters dropped out in 9th grade. How is he successful? How can he tell me what to do? She said, listen to him, young man. And he said, Greg, I'm an orphan. I dropped out of the 9th grade. I was a dishwasher. And I was a dishwasher for this guy who drove a white Cadillac around wearing a white suit with a white beard for 20-some years, trying to sell his chicken recipe from Kentucky. I said, I'd never heard of the guy. He said, yes, you have, Greg. His name is Harlan Sanders, but you know him as Kentucky Fried Chicken.
No way.
I said, what's this got to do with anything? He said, well, I worked for him as a dishwasher. And Indiana's right next to Ohio. And he said, I was working for him in his restaurants in Indiana, washing dishes, then became an assistant manager and manager. And he told me, he says, young man, I have 11 underperforming stores in Columbus, Ohio. We didn't know what underperforming stores were at that time. Basically, it's stores not making any money.
Right.
And he said, if you can go turn these around, I'll give you one. He turned them around so much he gave him all 11.
How old were you?
Let's see, 7th grade, so probably 13, 14.
And this teacher of yours is telling you the story that happened to him, meaning he took over the stores.
No. This is a guest that she brought in. Because we have a thing here called Junior Achievement.
Oh, okay.
And we used to have it in the inner city. So she would bring in speakers. So this guy, and he said, Gregory, I came to Columbus. I turned all 11 stores around. He didn't give me one. He gave me all 11. Wow. And he says, I thought I could build a better hamburger. And I don't like milkshakes. I want to have my own milkshakes. And he says, I have a daughter named Melinda, and she has pigtails and red hair. So he says, young man, right around the corner here, I started my first restaurant on East Broad Street, 3 miles from here, and it's called Wendy's. My name is Dave Thomas.
Hell no. You serious? The owner of Wendy's? That's the guy that...
The founder, Dave Thomas. He's the guest that my teacher brought in to us to talk to us. So I didn't realize how big of a deal it was, in even through high school, I didn't realize, Dave Thomas, blah, blah, blah. And this is the thing. I tell people, Daniel, opportunities come to everybody. But who will take those opportunities? That's the question. So there's 25 kids in my class, right? Mm-hmm. Me and 2 other, Dave Thomas said, you know what, I'm going to bring someone out of my team every month to mentor you guys for a whole year on a Saturday. It probably won't be me. It'll be one of my staff members. But if you guys show up, they will teach you things about business and about life. Not all about business, but mainly about life. And me, a guy named Keith, he's a big-time attorney in Atlanta, and Lakeisha, who has 3 kids in high school, right? Mm-hmm. But because she came every Saturday, she has 6 dental practices in the United States.
Wow.
So you look, 25 kids, only 3 of us stayed, right? And we all became successful. All the other ones, all they talk about now when they see us, man, we could have came there, we could have done that, we could have. And listen, it's all those could have beens, all those should have been. So that's where I really learned about money. That's where I learned about money. And Dave Thomas told me, young man, there's never be ashamed to have money. He said, because money affords you to help people. It affords you to help people. And that's where people, I hear people talk about, Greg, money is the root of all evil, the Bible says. I said, you're not reading the same Bible I'm reading, because it says the love of money. And I said, I love money, L-O-V. I love money with all my heart, because I can't help people build schools without my money. I could never build the gymnasium for my daughter's private school. My neighbors, when they lost their jobs as high-paying engineers and architects, they had to uproot their kids. But because the big dreamer, their neighbor, made a lot of money, guess what? I paid their rent for 6 months.
Wow.
And now they didn't have to move out. They found jobs. So that's why I tell people I love money. I think the love of money is the root of all evil when you have $1 billion, but you won't let a nickel go to help someone. Because I believe money is used as a tool to help other people. I've sent kids to private colleges to help them get their GEDs, their rehab. I would have never been able to do that if I didn't love money, right?
So how did you get started in the, you made your money, your first million, I guess, in the franchise business, right?
Yes.
What was the business model? How did you get started?
I went to University of Florida. Didn't know what a franchise or a franchisor was. I just knew Wendy's, right? I knew Wendy's. So I'd go in and eat this thing called Subway in 1984 because I was homesick. I was homesick, right? I was homesick because we didn't have YouTube or iPhones or anything like that in 1984. Now it's much easier to go away to college. You can get, heck, I can go, look, I'm speaking to you in Israel, right? That's how easy technology is now. So I was homesick, so I'd go eat in Subway. And it was a small, not that big of a chain then. I would speak to the owner, and I'd go in every day because I was homesick. And we were just talking, and we started talking. He taught me how he got in Subway. It was easy. So I knew I didn't want to work for anybody. I knew I didn't. So I came back to Columbus because my wife and I had a baby. So I dropped out after my second year. And I started working at a Subway because I knew I wanted to own a Subway. And I worked 7 days a week because you have to do what you have to do. And I had a newborn baby who needed diapers, who needed a Similac, milk, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I worked 7 days a week. After 8 months, this man brought me in, him and his wife, and he says, "Young man, we need to have a discussion." I said, "Yeah, Clarence, so what is it?" He said, "I know you want to be assistant manager, and a district manager." He said, "But son, we have to part ways. I can't have you work for me anymore." Now, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'1". Now I'm 249, but I was 6'1", about 210 pounds. I played football at University of Florida. I was outside linebacker. I was ready to hit this old guy because I was thinking he's going to tell me I'm stealing, I'm lying to him. I said, "Clarence, I've never done anything wrong here. I worked my heart out." He says, "Stop it, Greg." Now I'm really about ready to punch him. And his wife and him look at me and they said, "Greg, you cannot work for us because we need you to take the next step and become an owner."
What?
I said, "What owner do you want me to work for?" And he says, "We don't want you to work for an owner, Greg. We want to help you buy a store." I said, "Buy a store as in what?" "A Subway." Because I said, "Clarence," I said, "I don't have no money. I don't have any money. I don't even know how to buy." I said, "We paid $450 for our car. We don't even, how would we even go get money for a business?" And he says, "You're not going to. I'm going to be your bank."
What?
I said, "What's that mean?" He said, "How much money do you have?" Because my wife and I used to work for Ralph Lauren after I dropped out of college. He said, "How much money do you and Jan have with the baby?" I said, "We have $1,400. He said, "Can you give me 500 of that and I'll finance you the rest?"
Oh my!
And I'm
goodness.
thinking in my mind, because of the life I grew up in, I'm thinking, I know scam artists, right? So I'm thinking, this dude ain't taking my $500.
Yeah,
he's not taking my $500. And he looked at me and he says, "Greg, if you fail or don't want to do it, I just take my store back. I can't lose either way." He said, "But I'm telling you, if you get in here and work for yourself, like you work for me and my wife, Nancy, I guarantee you will never have to worry about picking worms a day in your life. Never." And he looked at me and his wife gave me a big hug and she said, listen to Clarence. Listen to him, Gregory. Listen to him." So I went back and asked some of my friends that lived on the street, some of my brother's friends, who were drug dealers. And I told them. And it was the drug dealers, Daniel, that told me. They said, "Wait a minute, Greg, this dude's willing to finance you your business. So you can't really lose because if you walk out, you don't lose anything." And it was the drug dealers that said, "Take the deal. Take the deal. Get in there and work your butt off because you ain't got nothing to lose, Greg. You ain't got nothing to lose." And that's what my brothers always taught me. If you go up against someone and fight them and they have nothing to lose, you will always lose. Because the man who has nothing to lose, he'll win eventually. And that's what happened. I got in there. First thing I did was stop all smoking in the store. We were one of the first businesses in Ohio. Now Ohio is all smoke free. We did that. People laughed at me. I went out and I went to synagogues. I went to churches. I went to mosques. I went everywhere I could because I as Les Brown says, I was hungry. I was hungry. I wanted to make sure my baby girl who was born, I wanted to make sure that she had the best schooling, a great life. So I worked my store. People talk about grinding and hustling. Most people just talk. They don't know what grinding or hustling is. Daniel, I worked my first Subway store open to close, 7 days a week, 4 weeks out of the month, 12 weeks out of the year for 4 years straight. I only left an hour to go home and shower and see my daughter.
Wow.
That was it. I paid my first store off in a year and a half instead of 7 to 10. Then I used that to leverage to get another one because Clarence taught me about leverage, right? You pay one store off. Now, instead of paying $150,000 for that, $189,000 for that store, now that store with sales is worth $500,000. So now I can go out and open another store. Well, I took that store sales up 189%. So guess what Subway wants you to do? You take a store up 189%, they want you to open more stores.
Right.
So I leveraged that, went to the bank. They're like, sure, young man, you don't have any debt. We'll give you a loan. You want to buy another store? We'll give you another loan. So I kept using leverage, buying stores and stores.
How many stores? How many stores did you have?
55 at one time.
55?
55. I became the second largest Subway franchisee in Ohio at the time.
Wow.
The only other guy who was bigger than me was a guy who actually started Subway in Ohio.
Right.
So then I became successful. Then I started opening more and more and more. And then I found out you could buy them and flip them for more money. And that's what we do to this day. We'll buy a store and you run it for a year. I'll buy it super cheap because some guy who bought it with 3 partners, they thought they were going to make millions of dollars off one store. So they fight and argue. So I buy it for like 80. I just bought a store for $100,000 less than what I can build it for. People say, Greg, I thought you were getting out. I said, listen, when you could buy a business for $100,000 less and you could flip that, I paid $215,000 for the store, Daniel. I'll be able to sell it for $500,000 in a year.
Wow. What's the secret to your growth, though?
The secret is getting into the business and just having a system. Anything in life is having systems. Most people who fail, they fail because they don't have systems in place. That's it. I love systems. That's why I love franchises. I would never open my own restaurant or company because I love systems.
Well, I was going to say,
franchises are.
How do you manage 55 stores? Like most people can hardly manage one, and you're managing 55. That's insane.
It's like because I didn't speak. In business we always teach people to delegate, right? Mm-hmm. Because I didn't speak to people, I always had to delegate. So delegating was easy for me. To this day, it's easy for me. I delegate my nieces. They hate it. My daughter, my wife. But I had to because I did not speak. That's the one thing in business people, it's hard to get people to delegate. For me, it was a necessity because I didn't speak. So now we use technology. I can look at my stores right now on my iPhone, my iPad, and see how many cookies are rang up, if they gave a police officer a 50% discount. So technology, which I know nothing about, but I love surveillance systems because I know how to use those. So I tell people one of the biggest myths, Daniel, is you cannot buy time. Sure you can. I buy time right now. I'm sitting here visiting my friend, 73 years old, who lost his leg and gave up on life every day that I'm not speaking, 7 days a week. See, I buy my time because I pay managers to run my businesses. That's when you become wealthy, when you can buy your time. See, I didn't want to get in business to work 7 days a week. I wanted to get in business to have a lifestyle where I can spend every single day with my wife and my daughter. My daughter's 29 years old. She sees me 6 days a week because I spent time with her.
Wow.
Up until probably 5 years old, I was always working. But then in kindergarten or preschool, Daniel, I took my daughter every single day. I dropped her off in preschool, picked her up, all the way up to the day she went to college.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real blessing. It is a real blessing. Yeah. I come home every day. I play chess with my oldest son. I have 4 children. And I make it a thing that every day I play chess with my 8-year-old, and then I do a little bit of homework with the other kids and tell them a bedtime story. And I'm telling you, every day I feel like it's a blessing because, it's like 4 PM where most people are still working, and they can't do that. They don't have that luxury. Most people are traveling or going to work and then coming home late at night, working overtime. They're not seeing their family. And for me, that's just not a life that I wanted to live. That's not what I want to do,
Yes. Mark Twain said, most people die at 25. They're just buried at 75.
Nice. Yeah.
And that's most people. They go to a job. It's called the box life, Daniel. They sleep in a box. They eat cereal out of a box. They drive a box. They go sit in a box, a cubicle. And then they come back home to that box. And that's all they know for 30 or 40 years. And then they look back and say, wow, I've never lived my life. Never. I know people that's worth $100 million who cannot tell you the name of the school their kids went to, Daniel. And I know people who they just get by, and they take their kids to school, they go to their plays, they go to their sporting events, and their kids go to college, they become great people. In the end, if we're lucky enough to be in a hospital bed, it's about the people we're surrounded by. To me, that's success. And I don't know if it's because of the family life I grew up in, but family is everything with me. You'll never hear that saying. You'll never hear a wealthy business person say, I wish I spent more time at the office when they're dying.
You know, Greg, for someone that didn't speak for most of his life, you speak really well.
It's, at Toastmasters, when I joined Toastmasters 26 months ago, my doctor told me to join my dentist 8 years ago. And it's funny, Daniel, because he's in my book because he told me about Toastmasters. So I didn't know anything about Toastmasters. I said, Doc, you know I'm a lifelong diabetic. I can't eat bread. Mm-hmm. He started laughing. He said, Greg, what do you think Toastmasters is? I said, it's for toast, right? It's an appliance. He started laughing and said, no, it's not, Greg. I didn't know. I thought it was a toaster, right? Like a convention.
Right.
He said it's an organization. They teach you how to speak, to be a competent communicator. It's for like politicians, news anchors, or just someone who works at a company who has to get up and speak. Mm-hmm. Well, it took me 5 years to get there because when I heard that, the doctors and CEOs, I don't wear suits. I wear my dream, grind, hustle, my big dreamer hat, my shorts. I'm not a dress up person. Yes, I'm sitting in a $130,000 car right now, but I don't dress up clothes. I don't. So I'm thinking everyone's dressed up. So that was that fear I was driven by. Mm-hmm. That, because it was a speaking thing. My speaking thing, you asked me what my fear was, it was speaking in front of people, which is 87% of people's fear is public speaking. So my wife gets to talk me into going, and I get there, it's like 5 minutes till.
How old were you?
And, this was 3 years ago, 26, 48 years old.
You're 48, so 48 years old is your first time going to speak, basically.
Toastmasters. Yeah, Toastmasters. Right. To learn how to speak.
To learn how to speak.
This is where I tell people things line up for a reason. So I'm talking to my wife, and remember I thought people were going to be dressed up.
Oh.
Like touching. That's my wife. They're calling me right now. I hung up on her though. That's okay. So I'm thinking in my mind, everyone's dressed up, right? So I told my wife, I'm looking at this first guy. He looks just like President Obama, but he's heavier. So I know I'm not going to ask him, right? Because I know he's in a nice suit. I see a lady in a dress, really nice dress. So I'm not going to ask her, right? Because I know she's going. Mm-hmm. She's dressed in a nice dress. So I told my wife, I got it on my ear, said, baby, I'm coming home. This Toastmasters thing is not for me. She said, dear, please go. I know you have something to offer people. Please go to it. So she begged me, and I spotted my target. I spotted my turkey, Daniel. This dude wearing flip-flops. He's wearing flip-flops, stained khaki shorts, and a bright Hawaiian shirt like I was wearing, right?
Right.
He was my turkey. I said, baby, hold on a second. I'm going to ask this guy. I said, but I'm coming home. I had the phone in my ears, and I said, excuse me, sir, can you tell me what this thing called Toastmasters is? He turned around. He had a patch on his eye, and he smiled, and he said, shook his hand, and he said, yes, I can, son. My name is Charlie Ashley. I'm the president of Toastmasters of Ohio.
Oh, my goodness. What is with you meeting all the right people?
Well, that's what I talk about. And I just saw that man last night, the oldest Toastmaster in Ohio. And when me and Les Brown were speaking there, I always say Charlie is the reason that I won't shut up, right? So, Daniel, this kid who couldn't speak at 48 years old, I'm studying my Toastmasters class. And I heard about this thing called a speech contest when I got there. I didn't know there was such a thing. Right. So this Charlie Ashley guy says, I believe that we are looking at a world champion of public speaking at Toastmasters and possibly a international speaker making good money. So I'm looking at the guy who coached me on one speech, my icebreaker. His name is Harold, who graduated from Harvard and Georgetown. Now remember, I graduated from public school inner city, 454 out of 455. Right. Or Maria, right beside me, who's 72 years old, graduated from The Ohio State University, a great orator. Great orator. I didn't know what an orator was then, right?
Right.
I'm thinking, who are they talking about? And they both said, you, Greg. I said, wait a minute. Did he say a chicken wing eating contest? Because I can eat some wing. But a speech contest, not me. Not me. That's not for me. Well, see, sometimes you have to believe in others' belief in you before you start believing in yourself.
Greg, how much do you get paid to speak today?
I got paid $15,000 to speak to a school last week here in Ohio for 70 minutes.
$15,000 for a 70-minute. If someone would have told you that when you were 48 and you were walking into Toastmasters, what would you have said to them?
I told them they were stupid when they told me I could speak.
That's wild.
I said, listen, Daniel, I was winning competition after competition, right? I have all these trophies in my closet because trophies mean nothing to me. My trophy is my baby girl, my daughter. That's my trophy for life. So I came home and I won another contest, right? This big gold trophy. My wife started crying. She couldn't believe it. And I slammed up against my granite countertop. I slammed it.
Why?
I said, why? I said, who are these people to lead me on? To lead me on, trying to butter me up, trying to suck up to me, make me feel sorry for me because of my life and give me these stupid trophies. And my wife said, dear, maybe you're doing something good like you have in our life. I said, Janet, and you know I don't speak. How am I? There's 9 guys I just competed with, and they're telling me I'm first place. Well, she kept me going. Well, I'm a diabetic by life, juvenile diabetic. I cannot get the flu. I got the flu, Daniel, beginning of the week. I was supposed to speak, and if I won this last competition, I go to Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada, to compete for the World Championship of Public Speaking.
Wow.
So in my life, I would not lose just to lose, right? I'm going to lose on my own merit. So I couldn't speak at all. My voice was gone. My wife's got all these remedies. My temperature was 105 degrees. I should have been at the doctor at 101 degrees because of my diabetes. But I said, I'm going to beat this. I got pictures of me with a big pot of water with a towel over the top of my head. So I get through the competition, and everyone's panicking. They're coming up to me, Greg, what's wrong with you? Your eyes are bloodshot. What's wrong? You're sweating. You need to go to the doctor. Charlie, Maria, they're wiping my sweat and they're saying, young man, this is just a competition. Please go to the doctor. Said, guys, listen, if I'm going to lose, I'm not going to lose just letting the sickness make me lose. I'm going to lose my own merit. So I went up there. I gave it. I tell people, when you get your chance, what will you do with that chance? Will you become a champion or will you become a chump? But it's your opportunity. It's your time to grab the world. It's your chance to grab your dreams. So I got up there. There was 9 people, 2 guys. I said, those are phenomenal speakers in my mind. I told people, these 2 guys, they should be speaking. They're going to get paid a lot of money. Well, I got up. I was going to leave. Charlie pulled me down and said, young man, where are you going? I said, it's over with, Charlie. I gave my speech. I'm going to go to the doctor. He said, no, you sit down. I got back up after they called number 2 person. Maria said, where are you going? I said, I'm leaving. She says, no, you sat down. You're going to go through this. You said you're going to go through it. You're going to go through it. I'm sitting there with my head down. I'm sweating all over the floor. And Charlie and Maria, they said, young man, go get your trophy. You're going to Las Vegas. And I said, what? I said, what? So everyone's clapping for me, about 500 people.
Wow.
And I go up there. I couldn't believe it. Everyone shook my hand. And here's the thing. You know how they remember me 2 years later? Because I threw up all over the floor after I got my trophy.
No way.
Yes. Remember, I was that sick. I went to the doctor right after. They had to put IVs in me. They had to give me insulin to get my sugar levels down. And that's when I believed that I could speak. And when I went to Caesar's Palace, for the 2014 championship, and this is the thing. When I didn't make to the finals, Daniel, I thought I was a big loser. Remember, I was only in Toastmasters 6 months. Charlie Ashley calls me and says, Gregory, put Jan on the phone. He says, Jan, does your husband think that he's a loser? She says, yes, Charlie, he feels bad that he let you guys down. He says, Jan, and your husband all your life. Will you please tell him that the guy who beat him has been trying since 1989.
Wow.
And Greg's only been in Toastmasters. He said, your husband has no damn business even being there. And I said, I told you, Charlie, I was that bad. He says, young man, you're not that bad. You're that good. You've only been in Toastmasters 6 months. You shouldn't even be there. You should take years. He said, I started in Toastmasters in 1971, Greg, and I've never made it as far as you.
What makes you such a good speaker, Greg?
Well, I didn't know that, Daniel. When I was winning, I would leave because when you compete, you're allowed to stay in the room, but I didn't know that. I thought I had to leave. So one of the guys who believed in me, his name is Carl Delestretto, he gave me my first trophy. And when he gave my first trophy, he whispered in my ear, he said, Greg, this will not be your last trophy, and you have something about you. So I asked him, I said, Carl, why do people like my speeches? I don't understand. He said, if you sat in there, you'd see why. He says, Greg, listen, most people who give speeches, that's what they give speeches. You give a message, and that's what people love. You give a message. That's what people love. And I didn't understand that. And when I gave my speech about my story, and that's what helped me get my story out. No one knew my story, Daniel, until I joined Toastmasters, because I was afraid that people in my franchise would judge me. I thought they would judge me when they heard my life. So when Toastmasters loved it, then my wife said, it's time, dear. It's time to tell our story. Right? So Carl believed in me. He said, young man, you give a message. And I was making women cry, and I was apologizing. I would tell Charlie and Carl and Benji and Harold and Maria, I said, guys, I'm sorry I made those women cry. And they looked at me like I just robbed them. They looked at me like I just pulled a gun. And Maria says, Greg, when you can make people cry, you're touching their hearts. And that's what most speakers can't do. You do that very well. So then I had to apologize to my Toastmasters after I got to that point, because I thought I was lying to them, Daniel, because I've never written a speech. You know, they teach you how to write speeches from your icebreaker where you say, hi, my name is Daniel, my name is Greg, blah, blah, blah. Because I learn at a different pace, a different way. I can't write things. I have to do things in my mind. So what I do now is when you say I got 5 to 7 minutes, I'll practice my speech in my mind with a stopwatch or something, and I'll do that. Well, I told him, I said, guys, I want to tell you something. I said, I apologize, but I've never written a speech. I can't write speeches. I can't do that on a piece of paper. Charlie looked at me, shook my hand, and smiled with his eye patch, and he says, young man, it works for you.
Right.
It works for you. So I speak from my heart.
You know why it works for you, Greg? I think it works for you because you're just being you. And that's the secret. You see, you are someone who built a franchise, 55 restaurants, second largest Subway franchise in Ohio. Okay.
And I helped open 270 taco franchises also.
And 270 taco franchises. And this is somebody, guys, for those listening, this is coming from somebody who grew up with no education, no business education, no business experience, nothing. But you know what? That's exactly what you had going for you, Greg, is that you basically just said, I'm going to do it my way because I don't know any other way. And when you get up on stage, you don't know any other way because you don't even know how to write a speech, right? You don't know how to write it down, so you just say whatever comes from inside, and that's the best speeches. When I've given speeches in my life, the best speeches I've ever given were the ones where they were completely off the cuff and they just flowed, and it was like I didn't even know where it came from. Have you ever stood on stage and in your mind as you're speaking, you're like, holy crap, where am I coming up with this stuff? This is awesome.
No, I think quite. Listen, I just took my niece, who's with me here visiting my friend Herbert. We just got back from Atlanta because I spoke to CNN. I spoke to CNN, and right after the next day I spoke to a Push to Dream tour.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I think they hated me. Did I say a chicken just flew out of my butt or what? I can never remember that.
You still think that though today?
I still think, yes. I spoke with Les Brown. It was all over the media, all over the social media. And they said I got a standing ovation. I left there and I said, my niece was there. And my niece was like, Uncle, we could hear you all the way outside the auditorium. You were just rocking it. You had people yelling, today is the day. It's my time. 2017 is now. New Year's Eve was yesterday. Today is my day.
So why? I mean, Greg, if you...
I didn't know what I said.
Why you
I didn't know what I said.
How are you able to give over that message of hope and strength, which is basically what you're doing, and then afterwards you're like questioning yourself, like, did I do anything? Did I manage? Like, why did they even like me? Why?
Yes, because I think because I don't have proper etiquette. Now, one thing I do in my life, and Toastmasters told me this, they said, Greg, they have a grammarian. They said, Greg, we've never heard you say or whatever that. And that surprises me because that's what they try to correct with most speakers and stop saying or so or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I haven't had that problem. but I just speak from my heart. What I do is, like CNN, I said, what do you want me to do at CNN? Well, Greg, we want you to get our people who hold the boom mic to understand that they can become an anchor. We want the person who sorts the mail to understand that they can become a cameraman, a woman. I said, okay, how long do I have to speak? So I make up a speech in my mind with my life, and that's what I do. I just go in and speak from my heart. I speak from my heart. I'll put my hand, I'll go grab the person who holds the boom mic. I'll put my hand on their shoulder, and I'll say, you know what? People told me, they told me that I would be locked up. They told me that I couldn't become a millionaire. They told me that I couldn't even make it past the 9th grade. I said, but you know what? I didn't get the memo. I listened to other people believed in me. And I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, listen, when people believe in you, you must start first believing in yourself. Because when people tell you that you should be an anchor person, then you start listening. Because when you start believing, that's when you sit in that anchor chair. So I ask people when I speak, what do you want me to do? That's what Toastmasters taught me. What is your objective? What do you want me to speak on? And that's what a lot of speakers do. That's what Les Brown told me. You know, Les Brown is my mentor because I grew up here listening to him as a child when he was a DJ. And he said, Gregory, I always want you to do an assessment. I didn't know really what assessment was. He said, go in a day early, and I do that, talk with the top 5 people and ask them, what problems do you have that you want me to solve? What do you want me to speak on? And that's what I do. I just got another job over a dude who has a PhD who wears a $12,000 Armani suit. I just blocked him out. They're not bringing him in. They're bringing back the big dreamer because they heard me speak. And they said, I said, you want me who dropped out of high school, went to college because my teacher just changed my grades? This dude's got a PhD. He's wearing a $12,000 Armani suit. Now I can afford the suit, but I'm not him. And they're like, Greg, listen, we love your message. We love your message, not his PhD. So that's what I do. I speak from my heart. I just ask people, what do you want me to do? But I still, because when I leave, Dan, I cry. Listen, I cry. When I had that $300,000 check, I cried all the way home driving from Seattle.
I would cry too. $300,000
not
for 3
because
days.
of the money, but because who am I? Who am I to get this? Who am I? I'm not a smart dude. I'm not. And I'm serious. I think I'm not this. Listen, I was buying some tools for my wife. My wife's 5'1", a little small, redhead girl. So my friends see me buying tools, right? They're like, dude, you building some major stuff? I said, no, you know I don't build. That's Jan stuff. They're like, that's funny. My little niece says, listen, tells my friend Dave, listen, if my uncle holds up a drill and a hammer, he has to ask my aunt, dear, which one do I saw the wood with? I'm not the smartest person, but you know what? You might be taller than me. You might be prettier than me. You might have a better GPA than me, but you will not outwork me. I will sleep in my business for 4 years straight, 7 days a week. I will become successful. And that's the way I look at my speaking right now. I will become successful. And that's why Les Brown talked about it last night. He said, do you guys know any Toastmasters that are speaking nationally other than Greg? No hands went up. No hands. He said that's because they're stuck doing things the proper way instead of thinking outside the box. Greg is speaking from his heart. That's why Fortune 500 companies are paying him. That's why high school colleges are paying him to speak. And I just put my head down and said, I can't believe this man's speaking about me. But that's all I do. And I ask people, why do you like me to speak? And they say, because Greg, you're authentic. You're not afraid to say that you're lactose intolerant in front of 1,000 people.
Right.
You're not afraid to say that you can't understand fractions.
That's what it really comes down to, Greg, because I feel like for people listening to this is all about one word, and that's authenticity. You're authentic. That's all it is. You're just being real. You're not hiding behind a brand or a logo or a website. And I find that with a lot of entrepreneurs trying to build up their business, you know, they want to come up with a fancy logo and a cool looking website and all this stuff. And people don't want that. People want real. We want real people. That's why I personally believe that Facebook is one of the best social media platforms if you want to grow your business, because I feel like Twitter and all the other, LinkedIn, it's just too formal. It's just too whereas with Facebook, I get to see your family. I get to see who you are. The minute I see someone with a picture of their child, I don't know what it is, I trust them. I trust them way more than I trust somebody who's just got a picture of them in a suit and tie. Because when I see a guy or a woman with their baby, I just feel like, oh, they're a real person. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I feel like the business world is missing. People want to do business with people.
That's right. That's right. That's why I asked Les Brown. I said, Les, why do I get all these speaking gigs over people who I can't hold a candle to, educational-wise? He said, just like I do, Greg. He said, I never worked for a Fortune 500 company. I never made it out of high school. I failed to 8th grade twice, held back in the 3rd grade 3 times. He said, because people love us because we're real. We struggled. We talk. He was the first, we were with his mentor, Mike Williams, who lives here in Columbus, who told me to speak in Toastmasters. He said, Greg, Les was the first speaker ever to say, it's hard. It's hard to catch your dreams. It's hard to start your business. He said, no speaker ever told people that it was hard. And he said, that's why people love you. And that's why people love your mentor, Les Brown. And you're right. When people ask for a friend request, when I see them with their kids, like if you look at my Facebook page, you'll see my nieces all over the place. Mm-hmm. You'll see my nieces everywhere. You'll see my nephews that I raised. You'll see my wife, my daughter. You'll see friends and me with them. I look at that because it says something. But yeah, you're right. When I look at this fake guy and his nice, listen, any fool can go out and get a suit. Anybody can go out, and you're right. The logos, my website, greginspires.com, my wife made. She's never done a website. Daniel, do you know how many times I would be wealthier than Warren Buffett if I made $1 for everyone who called me and says, dude, I got this dude named Daniel. He can make you a nice website. Hey, Daniel, how much for your website? $11,000. Why? Why do I need that? Why? It's kind of like a one sheet, right? I hear all these old speakers tell me you got to get a one sheet. Right. No, all the people that hired me, Dan, you know what they said? They said, Greg, we just went to your website. We saw Murray Newlands of Forbes magazine call you the best inspirational, motivational speaker he's ever been on stage with. We saw Les Brown talk about you, the world's leading motivational speaker. We saw Dr. John Cordray, Professor Ruben Arana. She said, because if you send these event planners said, when you send us a one sheet, you can write on there, Greg is the most fabulous guy in the world, Brad Pitt, right? Right. But if we see Brad Pitt on video talking about you, that's more than a piece of paper. Because anybody can write. So when people say, where's your one sheet? I said, I don't have one. Someone asked me last night, hey, do you have one sheet? I said, no, never will have one. And they're a speaker. And I said, how many times did you speak this year? He said, about 5. I said, right now, I'm on my 80th speech. And I said, next year, I have 260 offers to speak. Oh, my goodness me. Wow. Les Brown gets 3,000 a year. 3,000. 3,000. And he said, Greg, 3,000. He just took an offer to speak in Africa for $175,000 for a corporation. Then he's headed to India to make another $175,000 for 45 minutes. Wow, that's incredible. So there's money out there. And Les always told me, because I thought, no, there's no speaking out there because you Les. He says, Greg, I started my career here in Columbus. You grew up here in Columbus. Go around and ask people if they knew who Les Brown is. Ask black people. There's people who don't know who Les Brown is after 40 years. After 40 years. Listen, I'm speaking in Zambia, Africa, right? I'm speaking, that's going to be my second home other than Israel. But I met this guy who he heard me speaking, and he says, Big Dreamer, what would it take for me to get there? I said, call my agent. My agent gave and said, we'll meet that fee. And so I just did a Skype where my buddy has a podcast. I did a Skype with his team in Africa, and they were blown away. And they said, Big Dreamer, you're going to come to Zambia at least 4 times, right? So now I'm going there to Zambia, Africa, when these other people have these one sheets. They're not getting any gigs because event planners want to see you. They want to see you on. That's why the Zambia team wanted to see me on the screen. We did Skype together. And then their team asked me questions individually. And they're like, you know what? Get ready. You're coming up here at least 3 to 4 times a year. And they're paying me well. So it's people want authenticity. I didn't know what that meant. Before I went on a camera, I was afraid to put myself in front of Periscope, which I was voted #1 motivator first year Periscope. It was my buddy Steve Gamlin, who's a speaker in Massachusetts. He said, brother, I want you to look at my YouTube videos because he's a very authentic person. And I looked at this one video, and Daniel, it's cold. There's like 8 feet of snow in Massachusetts. And he's doing a YouTube video. His nose is so big, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He's sneezing. He's got a hood on, but he's giving inspiration. I said, Steve, how can you do that? He said, because, Greg, I want people to see I'm just like them, that I have bad days. And that's what got me in front of the camera. That's what got me in front of the camera to do my first Periscope and my Facebook Live. I'm not afraid. I don't care if people don't like my hat. I don't care people, because I used to worry about people think, and now I don't, because they don't pay my bills. They don't put me on a cruise ship. They don't take me to Hawaii, right? So I tell people, there's 7 billion people in this world. Why do we listen to 1 or 2? Why? Listen to those who love you enough. You know, if my wife or Les Brown calls me, Les Brown slammed his hand down the other day at me. He slammed it down. Gregory, how dare you leave that story out about your teacher, Mrs. Rivers? How she pulled you out and you almost turned around and knocked her teeth out because you didn't know who she was. How dare you? That's a powerful part of your story. He says, how dare you leave that out? And I love that, because I don't surround myself around yes people. I want no people. I want people who's going to tell me that's stupid, Greg. Don't do that. Because yes people will not be there when you need them. No people will. No people will. They will be there.
That's really powerful, Greg.
There's 2 people. There's 2 birds that I tell people. There's pigeons, right? Pigeons are always on the ground picking up something, right? And then there's eagles that are always soaring. I don't deal with pigeons. I only deal with eagles. I surround myself with people who are lifting up, not picking the crumbs off the ground.
Wow. Well, for those listeners that want to join you and become an eagle, how do they find you?
Well, they can go to my website that my wife made. It's not the greatest website, but it's a website. It's Greg Inspires, GregInspires.com. And they can follow me on all social media. And please, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'm not too big on, but I still do it. Greg Inspires, all over there. And if you want to find me on Periscope, where I was voted #1 motivator on Periscope, you can get me at The Big Dreamer. One word, just at The Big Dreamer. And you'll find me on there. But everywhere else is Greg Inspires website. And Daniel, my book is done. It's coming out. And if they go to my website, they can sign up for my digital copy, which will be 99 cents on the first day. 99 cents for the Kindle version or the Nook version for 99 cents. And please, I offer them to anybody. Just go to my website, GregInspires.com, put it in there. And then when it goes out to Barnes & Noble all over the world, the hardback will become $30. So I want you to do that. My book is called Dream and Grow Rich. Now it's called The Big Dreamer. The first book I ever read in 1983, my teacher, Mrs. Rivers, made me read. It was called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Oh, yeah.
It's a mindset book. It's what got me here where I'm at today.
Wow.
So my book is called Dream and Grow Rich, how to dream, grind, and hustle your way to success. Because those are the only 3 things I believe you need is a dream or a vision, a daily grind, getting up, working just from 5 to faint. You start at 5 in the morning till you faint, and then that hustle. While you're taking your lunch break, you work on your dreams. While you're at your kid's soccer game, basketball game, you work on your dreams. On the weekends, you work on your dreams. On the holidays, you give up the hot dog or whatever it is, the donut, to work on your dreams. That's the hustle. So dream, grind, hustle. The book is Dream and Grow Rich. It's a mindset book, because whatever you put in your mind will put out whatever you put in it. I don't believe in trash in, trash out. Trash in is trash in. I tell people all the time, listen, OPP, only phenomenal people. OPM, only phenomenal messages. You should be listening to positive messages every day on audiobooks, whatever it is. Reading. You should read at least 5 to 10 to 20 pages of anything a day. Because the more knowledge you have, I don't believe knowledge is power. Applied knowledge is power. So you got to have that dream, but then you got to put that work in it. See, a lot of people talk about the law of attraction. They talk about Think and Grow Rich, but they never talk about the work that has to go into it. Everybody has a dream, right? Everybody has intentions, but no one wants to put the work in. One action is better than a million intentions.
Wow. And to think that this voice was silenced for 48 years. Wow. I mean, that's incredible. Really, you are an incredible inspiration, Greg. Thank you so much for letting me pick your brain. Thank you to all my fellow brain pickers. I'm looking forward to the day when I'll be picking your brain.
You've been listening to the Can I Pick Your Brain podcast. Inspiration without perspiration is like a tiger without teeth. So, to put these ideas into action, head over to danielgefen.com.